What if I told you that a gun, bought for $500 at a pawn shop, recently sold at auction for $50,000? That's not a typo, and it's not a one-time miracle. It's happening right now in gun safes, attics, and estate sales across America, and most owners have absolutely no idea. Here's what's even more shocking. Some of these firearms look completely ordinary. No gold plating, no famous engravings, just cold steel and wood. But hidden inside their serial numbers, their markings, and their history is a fortune waiting to be discovered. We're talking about 10 specific guns, weapons that crossed hands for a few $100s, that are now trading for tens of thousands. Could one of them be sitting in your safe right now? By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which guns to look for and which ones to never let go. If that sounds like something you need to watch, hit that subscribe button right now, because we're just getting started. Number 10. High Standard HDM OSS/World War II suppressed pistol. Let's kick things off with a gun that most people have never even heard of, and that's exactly why it's worth a fortune. Meet the High Standard HDM, a small, quiet, almost unremarkable-looking pistol that was secretly used by America's wartime spy agency, the OSS, the predecessor to the CIA. During World War II, this compact .22 caliber handgun was specifically designed for one purpose: silent elimination of enemy targets behind enemy lines. It didn't look like a weapon of war. It looked like something you could slip into a coat pocket, and that was entirely the point. At the time, these pistols were government-issued tools, not collector's items. Nobody was thinking about value. They were thinking about survival. But fast forward 80 years, and verified, documented examples of this exact pistol are now selling for anywhere between $15,000 and $50,000 at major auction houses. So what turned a simple spy tool into a $50,000 treasure? 3 words: rarity, history, and proof. The OSS issued only a limited number of these pistols, and even fewer survived the war in original, matching condition. Many were destroyed, lost, or stripped of their parts. The ones that made it back, with original suppressors intact, correct markings, and verified military documentation, are now considered among the holy grails of American military collecting. Here's the part that should make your heart race. Some of these pistols quietly passed through estate sales and private collections for decades, completely unrecognized for what they truly were. The lesson? Never assume a plain-looking gun has a plain story. Because with the High Standard HDM, the quieter it looks, the louder the price tag speaks. Number 9. Colt 1911, U.S. military issue, World War I. If there's one pistol that defines American military history, it is this one. The Colt 1911 needs no introduction. It served the United States military for over 70 years through 2 world wars, Korea, and Vietnam. Millions were made. Millions were carried. And because of that, most people assume they're everywhere, and therefore not worth much. That assumption has cost a lot of people a serious amount of money. Here's the truth. A standard Colt 1911 might fetch $600 to $1,500 at your local gun show. Completely respectable. But a verified World War I production model, with the correct inspector cartouches stamped into the frame, the right date range, matching serial numbers, and original military paperwork. That same pistol can explode in value to $20,000, $30,000, even higher at the right auction. What makes the difference? The details hiding in plain sight. Specific inspector stamps, proof marks, and serial number ranges tell a trained eye everything about where that gun was made, who approved it, and whether it saw actual military service. Collectors obsess over these details, and they pay premium prices for guns that check every box. The brutal reality is that many World War I 1911s have been unknowingly refinished, modified, or mismatched, destroying their collector value forever. But the ones that survived, completely original and untouched, those are the ones rewriting auction records every single year. Number 8. Springfield Armory M1 Garand, correct configuration. General George Patton once called it the greatest implement of battle ever devised. And while history has proven him right on the battlefield, the collector market has proven him right in an entirely different way. The M1 Garand is one of the most recognizable American military rifles ever produced. It won battles. It turned the tide of World War II. And because it was made in massive numbers, most people write it off as a common, affordable shooter. Walk into any gun show and you'll find them priced between $600 and $1,200. Solid rifles. Great history. Nothing extraordinary. But here's where it gets interesting. A correctly configured, all-matching M1 Garand, meaning every single component, from the receiver to the stock to the trigger group, carries the same manufacturer and correct date range, is an entirely different animal. Add verified military documentation, an original cartouche stamp stock, and a correct early production receiver from manufacturers like Springfield Armory or Winchester, and suddenly you're looking at a rifle worth $10,000 to $15,000 or more. The problem is that decades of military surplus sales, rebuilds, and replacement parts have left most M1 Garands in mixed, mismatched configurations. Finding one that is completely original and untouched is genuinely rare, and serious collectors know it. This is a rifle that rewards patience and knowledge above everything else. Because the difference between a shooter and a treasure isn't always obvious until you know exactly where to look. Number 7. Walther PPK, not Sierra/World War II. Few pistols carry as much historical weight, or as much collector controversy, as the Walther PPK. Most people know it as James Bond's weapon of choice. And yes, that Hollywood connection absolutely pushed prices higher over the decades. But the real collector value of the Walther PPK has nothing to do with fiction. It has everything to do with documented, verified history that is as dark as it is significant. Nazi-era and World War II production PPKs, particularly those bearing specific German military acceptance stamps, SS markings, or Kriegsmarine proofs, represent some of the most historically documented small arms ever produced. These weren't just weapons. They were carefully marked, unit-assigned instruments of a world war. And that paper trail, that provenance, is exactly what drives their value into $10,000, $20,000, and beyond. Here is what separates a $400 PPK from a $20,000 one: documentation and matching markings. A verified example with correct period holster, matching magazine, unit markings, and original finish tells a complete, authenticated story. Collectors pay enormous premiums for that completeness. But buyer beware. This market is flooded with fakes and re-stamped imitations. Authentication from a recognized expert is absolutely essential before spending serious money. The Walther PPK proves one powerful truth. History itself has a price tag. And when that history is fully verified and documented, that price tag can be absolutely staggering. Number 6. Winchester Model 70 Pre-64. In the world of bolt-action rifles, there is one dividing line that every serious collector knows by heart before 1964 and after 1964. And that single year changed everything. The Winchester Model 70 was already considered one of the finest bolt-action rifles ever built in America. Hunters called it the rifleman's rifle. It was smooth, strong, accurate, and beautifully crafted. But in 1964, Winchester made a decision that would haunt the company for decades. They cut manufacturing costs by simplifying the design, replacing hand-fitted parts with stamped components, and eliminating the controlled round feed that shooters loved. The gun community never forgave them. Overnight, in 1964 Model 70s became something entirely different in the eyes of collectors, a benchmark of American craftsmanship that would never be replicated. Original Pre-64 examples in desirable calibers, with correct stocks, matching components, and strong original finish, began climbing in value steadily and have never stopped. Today, a standard post-64 Model 70 might sell for $600 to $800. But a pristine, all-original Pre-64 Winchester Model 70 in a sought-after caliber can command $3,000 to $8,000, and rare variants push even higher. The lesson here is powerful. Sometimes a corporate shortcut creates a collector's greatest treasure. Number 5. Colt Python pre-1970s. If the firearm world had a crown jewel, a revolver so respected, so obsessed over, so passionately pursued by collectors, it would be the Colt Python. And the pre-1970s examples? They are in a league entirely of their own. The Python was introduced in 1955 as Colt's flagship revolver, a .357 Magnum built to a standard of fit, finish, and mechanical perfection that the industry had never seen before. The trigger pull was legendary. The barrel rib was distinctive. The royal blue finish was so deep and rich it looked almost liquid. Shooters and collectors alike immediately recognized they were holding something extraordinary. But here's where the story gets financially fascinating. Colt discontinued the original Python in 1999, then reissued it in 2020. And while the reissue is a fine revolver, collectors made one thing absolutely clear: it is not the original. The early production Pythons, particularly those made in the 1950s and 1960s, with correct boxes, original grips, and untouched finish, began commanding prices that shocked even seasoned collectors. A used Python once traded for $500 to $800. Today, pristine early examples regularly sell for $6,000 to $15,000, and rare variants push well beyond that. The reissue proved one thing: you simply cannot recreate perfection. Number 4. Smith & Wesson Model 29.44 Magnum. Some guns become legends through war, some through history, and some through a single moment on a movie screen. The Smith & Wesson Model 29 belongs to that last category, and its story is one of the most dramatic value transformations in the entire collector world. When the Model 29 was introduced in 1955, it was celebrated as the most powerful production revolver ever made. Hunters loved it. Serious shooters respected it. But mainstream demand was modest, and the gun sat comfortably in the $200 to $400 range for years. Then came 1971. Clint Eastwood pointed a Model 29 at a criminal and delivered one of the most iconic lines in Hollywood history. Almost overnight, demand for the Model 29 exploded in a way nobody anticipated. Gun stores couldn't keep them on shelves. Waitlists stretched for months. But the real collector obsession centers on the pre-Model 29 5-screw variants, early production revolvers built before Smith & Wesson simplified the design. These earlier examples, in original condition with correct grips, original boxes, and matching paperwork, regularly command prices between $5,000 and $20,000. The Dirty Harry effect was real, powerful, and permanent. And for anyone lucky enough to own an early Model 29, Clint Eastwood essentially signed their paycheck. Number 3. Luger P08 Imperial German. There are iconic pistols, and then there's the Luger P08. Few firearms in history carry the kind of immediate visual recognition that the Luger commands. That distinctive toggle lock action, that sharply angled grip, that unmistakable silhouette. The moment most people see one, they know exactly what they are looking at. And that recognition alone has fueled one of the most passionate collector markets in the entire firearms world. But here is where casual admiration separates from serious collector knowledge. Not all Lugers are created equal, and the difference in value between variants can be absolutely staggering. A standard commercial Luger might sell for $800 to $1,500. Respectable, but nothing extraordinary. However, a verified Imperial German military Luger, with correct military acceptance stamps, matching serial numbers across every component, original military holster, spare magazine, and documented provenance, enters an entirely different financial universe. Rare variants, specific unit markings, and early production Imperial examples have sold at auction for $20,000 to $50,000 and beyond. The critical factor that collectors obsess over is matching numbers. Every single component, barrel, frame, magazine, and small parts, must carry matching serial numbers. A single mismatched component can cut the value in half overnight. With the Luger P08, the details don't just matter. They are absolutely everything. Number 2. Winchester Model 1873. There are guns that made history. And then there's the Winchester Model 1873, a rifle so deeply woven into the fabric of American identity that historians gave it a title no other firearm has ever earned. The gun that won the West. That is not marketing. That is not mythology. That is a historical fact backed by decades of frontier records, military accounts, and westward expansion documentation. The Model 1873 was everywhere, in the hands of lawmen, outlaws, settlers, and soldiers. It was the universal language of the American frontier. And today, that legacy is translating into some of the most jaw-dropping auction results the collector world has ever witnessed. A standard, well-used Winchester Model 1873 might sell for $1,500 to $3,000. But a documented, correct configuration example, with original finish, matching serial numbers, correct period furniture, and verifiable provenance, tells a completely different financial story. Rare variants, one-of-one presentation models, and documented frontier-used examples have crossed the $50,000 mark at major auction houses without hesitation. What makes specific examples truly valuable is documented individual history. A rifle tied to a named lawman, a specific battle, or a verified historical figure doesn't just carry wood and steel. It carries an irreplaceable piece of American storytelling. And collectors will pay almost anything for that. Number 1. Colt Single Action Army, the Peacemaker. We have saved the best and the most valuable for last. If there is one single firearm that defines American history, American culture, and American collecting all at once, it is the Colt Single Action Army. Known simply as the Peacemaker, this revolver didn't just participate in history. It shaped it. Introduced in 1873, the Colt SAA became the official sidearm of the United States Army, the preferred weapon of frontier lawmen, and the most recognizable handgun ever carried across the American West. Wyatt Earp carried one. Buffalo Bill carried one. And countless others whose names are permanently carved into American legend. But beyond the romance and the history, the financial reality of original Colt SAA revolvers is absolutely breathtaking. Standard examples in good condition regularly sell for $3,000 to $8,000. But first-generation examples, produced between 1873 and 1941, with correct matching components, strong original finish, verified military inspection cartouches, and documented provenance connected to named historical figures, have shattered auction records of $50,000, $100,000, and beyond. One verified, documented example tied to a named frontier figure recently crossed $500,000 at auction. The Colt Peacemaker isn't just a firearm anymore. In the right configuration, with the right history, it is fine art, American history, and a serious financial investment wrapped in blued steel and walnut grips. And there will never be another one like it. And there you have it, 10 guns that prove a firearm is never just a firearm. Behind every serial number, every inspector stamp, and every scratch in the finish, there's a story worth discovering. And sometimes, that story is worth tens of thousands of dollars. The most important takeaway? Never assume. Always research. The next fortune could be sitting quietly in your safe, completely unrecognized, right now. If this video opened your eyes, smash that like button, subscribe for more content that serious collectors actually need, and comment below, which of these guns do you own? We'll see you in the next one.